Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey, what's up, Steve?
Hey, Brian, how are you?
What's going on?
It's looking forward to this tonight. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Will.
Oh.
Hello.
Hey, Mike, you already there?
I'm here.
No, I was saying you already arrived at your destination.
Yeah, we just left early this morning to get back. Rather than trying to dial in.
We'll wait a couple minutes. People can find the YouTube link.
Hey, Jill. Daphne's asking for the link.
Okay, tell her I'll email it to her.
Jill, I think she wants the YouTube link.
Yeah, that's what I'll send.
Brian, I think the rest of the board is in the YouTube link. You guys are welcome to be in either. So you can,
No, Daphne says she's on YouTube.
oh, she is? Okay. Okay, good.
I'll send her the Zoom link also.
She wants
Just
the Zoom link. Okay. Okay, I think we can get started. It's 6:32. I want to welcome everyone from our community who has joined us tonight to talk about our upcoming bond/operating levy, issue 22. We're joined by a panel, many of whom are on our master facilities committee. And so I'd like to have each introduce themselves. So we can begin with our Assistant Superintendent, Jill Elliott.
Good evening. My name is Jill Elliott. I have the pleasure of serving as the Assistant Superintendent in the district. I actually grew up here in Gahanna, and I have served in many roles throughout my time here. And it's been a pleasure to work on the Master Facilities Committee with such a wonderful group of community members with great expertise and insights. So thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Clay. I lived in Gahanna 35 plus years and raised 2 kids in Gahanna schools. I taught at Middle School West for 19 years, and I've had the pleasure, this is my first week in 4th grade full-time distance learning. So I've been one of the ones to make the switch, and we are learning as we go, but it has been fun. And I really love this district. And I want to say that as a teacher and a community member. I really love Gahanna. I am ready for, even though the high school will not benefit me personally, ready for a new high school, and I'm really hoping this levy passes. I'm just happy to serve on this committee and to represent teachers on this committee.
Thanks, Tracy. Jessica Williams.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Williams. I'm the principal of Lincoln High School. I am starting my third year as the principal, but fourth year overall in the district. I am super proud and honored to serve on this committee and to serve our community in such a way to bring forth and ask for your permission and recommendation for our potentially new high school and other spaces across the district to address some of our dire needs. So thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you. Mike Verlingo, our treasurer, is here tonight as well.
Hello, Mike Verlingo. I've been with the district since January of this year. And although I've not been here for a great length of time, it has been an honor to participate in the process. Understanding the need has been here for a number of years in terms of the growth and the need for expanded facilities. So again, pleasure to serve and be part of GAHANNA Jefferson.
Thank you. And also Brian Harrison, one of our board members, is here as well. Hello, Brian.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Hairston, and I'm just glad to be able to participate in this forum. And I've had two kids go through the district and graduate, and there's two more. I have one at the elementary level and one at the high school level. And I look forward to working with the community to actually provide a solution that will enable us to continue to grow and to continue to provide the quality education that we have over the past several years.
Thanks, Brian. Also, Catherine Hope Cunningham is here tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine Hope Cunningham. I have been on the Master Facilities Planning Committee for about 5 years. I'm a middle school West parent, and you may know me as a realtor, but before I was a realtor, I was a teacher. So the perspective that I bring is as a parent and as a teacher and a realtor.
Thank you. And also Scott Lofton, our business manager, is here tonight. Hello, Scott.
Good evening. I've been with the district for 4 years and am a resident of GAHANNA for the last 15 years.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. So what we'd like to do tonight is do a short presentation. Hopefully it won't be too long. We have a number of aspects of our master facilities plan phase 2 we'd like to go through with you. And then at the end, we'll talk about all aspects of issue 22. And at the end, we'll try to answer any questions that you have. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And you should see my presentation here. So I'd like to start by just acknowledging our committee. These folks have been engaged for a number of years, many of them, and some of them are new to our committee. We've been meeting on most Mondays from the spring throughout the summer to come up with recommendations for the Board of Education for phase 2 of our master facilities plan. And we could not have done this work without this committee. Some of the members of the committee have kids in our school district. Some have raised their kids and still live here, but all care very much about our facilities and the spaces our kids work in to learn every day. And their commitment to our community, to our district, and to our facilities recommendations is phenomenal. So I just want to say a thank you to everyone on the committee. Just like to quickly review phase 1 of our master facilities plan. So at the beginning, when we did coffees leading up to the 2018 bond and operating levy in May of 2018, we had a 3-phase plan. The Master Facilities Committee recommended addressing each of the levels, elementary, middle, and then high school in different phases. The thinking was trying to keep neighborhood schools, trying to keep whatever bond we put on the ballot affordable. And each level was about $40 million. And the high school was really a recommendation for a renovation at around 40 million and so what we ended up doing is we listened to the community. About 8 coffees in, we did a total of 40. Folks said that you really need to think about doing this in 2 phases and trying to accelerate a solution for Lincoln High School. And so we listened, and so that we brought it back to the committee, and the committee said, yes, that's what we should do. And so phase 1 includes the building of a new Lincoln Elementary. Lincoln Elementary on Havens Corners is a very dated building with very old systems and lots of problems. And so we're glad to be able to replace that with a beautiful new building on Helmbright right next to Middle School South. And we just got word recently that they've enclosed the building, that the windows are going in and the winter work will begin. And we will finish Lincoln Elementary this summer and move in the fall of 21. So that'll be an exciting day to open Lincoln Elementary. Also part of phase 1 was K-8 classroom, media center, and restroom renovations. And so each classroom in the first year, as we phased this in, got new furniture. Many classrooms got new storage this summer. Several got new flooring, but every classroom also got LED lighting, which is a lot easier on the eyes, much better for learning, and much more efficient. We should be saving a lot of money on energy costs. All of our media centers, except for Jefferson Elementary, have been renovated, and we've done many restroom renovations throughout the district. The thing that's holding us up a little bit is the flooring projects, because we have to abate asbestos each summer, and that takes a while, and there's lots of precautions that go into that. But we'll be getting new flooring in each of our buildings, in our classrooms, in most of them. Like Middle School West had great terrazzo flooring in the hallways, so that's not going to get replaced. But most of our buildings, the flooring throughout the building will be replaced. And the next part of this phase 1 of our plan was to do community engagement around a workable high school solution. And we have done that. We've heard lots of great ideas and lots of inspiring thoughts from community members around a new Lincoln High School. And so we're going to talk mostly about that tonight. But what's driving this work is an enrollment study that we did in the fall and winter of 2019. What we really needed to do was have somebody who's an expert at demography and geography come out and look at the vacant land, especially in Jefferson Township, and forecast what level of student growth would we get based on the acreage that's available to build on. And so Cooperative Strategies out of Hilliard, they have offices all over the country, and they do this work all over the country. They do a lot of work in big county school districts like in Florida, Maryland, and Georgia. And these districts want to project what kind of growth are they going to have over the coming decades. And so they've also worked with Hilliard, which has experienced a lot of growth here in Central Ohio, and Olentangy. And so this study they did for us projects our growth all the way through 2068. And I'll show you a slide about that coming up. We framed this presentation tonight around 4 different questions. And the first is, what are the facility needs across our district? And again, what's going to drive these recommendations is really our enrollment study and the growth that we know we're going to experience very soon. And we already really have experienced. And so this is a slide from the enrollment study. And what we considered was projecting out how many homes per year could be built in Jefferson Township with all the different developments going on. We know there's a shortage in construction labor. So we knew it wouldn't be 200 homes a year. And so we considered 150, 125, and 100 homes per year going in the township. We thought the most prudent estimate would be 125 homes per year. And what this means for us, over the next 5 years, we're going to grow at about 600, almost 700 students, 671, I think. And over the next 6 years, we're going to grow at almost 800 students. And so the growth is upon us. And I'm going to show you a slide that we've blown up that highlights what our capacity issues are and we learned about from the enrollment study. And so you can see in 1920 at the K-5 level, we were at 116% capacity at our elementary level and 104% capacity at our middle school level. What's interesting about that is we were able to kind of balance out the enrollment at our middle schools because we redistricted some neighborhoods to go to Middle School East, which at the time only had about 450 students. Now each of our middle schools has around 600 students. So we're able to balance that out and help. What was happening is West and South were pushing 640 and 645, and it was becoming very crowded. So that worked for the time being, but as you can see, in the next several years, we're gonna gain enrollment, and in 25, 26, we're gonna be at 120% capacity. And so what this master facilities recommendation is going to help us do is prepare for that growth. And you can see in 5 years, in 24, 25, in all K-12 buildings, we're going to be at 108% capacity. And the interesting thing on this slide is it looks like we have capacity at our high school. And we do in terms of classroom space. The addition of Clark Hall has been great. It has helped us stem some of the overcrowding at our high school, but it hasn't solved all the problems. And I'm going to show you a video on our next slide that kind of shows what class change is like every single, when the bell rings every single period. This is what our students experience. So this is just a typical class change at Lincoln High School. And you can see the stairwells are narrow and very crowded, and students are very respectful of one another, trying to get to their next class. It's very crowded, and sometimes students are late getting to class. I remember at one of our community engagement meetings, one of our orchestra teachers was there, and he said he often started his classes a little bit late because students just couldn't get there on time because of the crowded hallways. And so this is something that's been happening at Lincoln High School for years. Sometimes kids will go outside and walk through the stadium behind the home bleachers to beat some of the traffic. But this is a difficult aspect of everyday life at our high school. And I know, Jessica, you experience this every day. Did you want to say anything about what class change is like at the high school and the capacity issues in our hallways?
Yeah, we, as you can see in the video, I mean, this is only one building of the 3 buildings that we have on main campus. And this is Lincoln Hall, our oldest building, but this is the case across the entire building on main campus, whether you're in Hamilton Hall, Lincoln Hall, or Jefferson Hall. In all of our stairwells, because they are narrow, we have upstairs. And as you can see in this video, all of these students are going down. So we have up stairwells and down stairwells to try to help manage the traffic. But as you'll notice from this video, it still takes them roughly 2 to 3 minutes to get to the bottom. And then they still have to potentially trek across the building to get to another class. So as Mr. Barrett was saying, it does cause some students to be tardy. And, the moving about outside and inside is something that our students have become used to. But as we know, in the state of Ohio, winter months are very cold. And if they could stay inside, they would absolutely love to. But because of our crowded hallways, we have to provide other options for them to traverse back and forth between classes in the building.
Yeah, so one of the things, thank you, Jessica, we heard again and again is creating a safer environment. Our students are very patient with one another, but it is crowded. And concerns of safety do come up when we have class changes. Also, what we heard a lot from our community conversations is parents, especially parents of younger students, really afraid about the notion of their children crossing the street to get the car call. So we heard parents, especially in the wintertime when it's a little bit dark and cold and icy, having students cross to get to the car call is an issue for them. We have about 450 or so students a day taking classes in Clark Hall. And one of the things we heard a great deal from the community about was the need for 21st century learning spaces that are collaborative and flexible, much like today's modern workspace. And so that was something that we heard a lot of input about. And the other thing, aspect of the high school, Jessica, as you know all too well, is our cafeteria space. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yes, so our cafeteria space, we have a main cafeteria and what we call the cafeteria annex. We, unfortunately, due to COVID, we do not have open lunch this year, but historically at Lincoln, our juniors and senior students have been able to engage in open lunch. And it is a great honor and privilege for them to be able to do so, but that is in large part because we do not have the cafeteria facility and space to house our students. To be able to eat. We have, in a traditional school year, 3 lunch periods, and that's still not enough space for all of the students that we have to be able to use the cafeteria space. When you think about the lines and how long it is and the time to get through the line to sit down and eat, and even find a seat. So we've worked really hard to try to manipulate our schedule in a way that allows our freshmen and sophomores to have space, but a larger cafeteria space would provide students adequate time to be able to get through the line, actually find a seat, and be comfortable and able to eat. We also have to use our library during the lunch periods to house students because we just do not have enough room in our cafeteria and cafeteria annex.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica. The second question that, sorry, go back here. The second question that we, I'm going to stop that. I apologize. The second question that we frame the presentation around is, what were the recommendations from the Master Facilities Planning Committee? And so we're going to go through the elementary recommendations first. And so at the elementary level, the committee recommended that we build 10 additional classrooms at Blacklick Elementary and High Point Elementary, additional art and music classrooms, extended cafeteria space, and increased office space. And so at High Point, it would be about 22,000 square feet, and at Blacklick, it would be about 23,000 square feet of additional space. These two buildings are mirror images of one another, so they're very similar. And so the architectural costs should be manageable, and it should be basically the same plan for each of these buildings. And what it would do, and the way it would benefit our districts, is we would have about 225 students each at Blacklick and High Point, additional students. And we would be able to eliminate the overcrowding, eliminate the need for trailers, and create flexible learning spaces, increase the cafeteria space, and provide space for the future growth that we're going to experience. And we really already have experienced at the elementary level. We're over capacity at each of our elementary schools except Chapel Field Elementary. And I would say at Blacklick right now, the trailer that is there is used for 5th grade. So it is basically a 5th grade wing. It is apart from the school. Mrs. Groves, our principal, and her team of teachers go to great lengths to keep it safe, but it is separate from the building, and you do have to go outside to go into the main building at Blacklick. The middle school recommendations would be to add 20 additional classroom spaces throughout the district. New art and music, additional art and music classrooms, extended cafeteria space, additional special education spaces, and increased office space. And the benefits are very similar to the elementary level. We would be adding 175 or so students in each of our middle schools, and we would be able to eliminate overcrowding, create flexible learning spaces, and again, increase cafeteria space and build to space for our future growth. At the high school level, the committee spent a lot of time on different considerations, deliberating over different things. When we found out what the square footage price was going to be, it has really skyrocketed in Central Ohio. Square footage prices to build, or prices to build commercial construction, traditionally have gone up about 3% a year. Lately, the last few years, they've been going up about 3% a quarter. And what's driving much of that cost is a shortage of carpenters and electricians and plumbers and drywall folks and HVAC folks. And so one of the things we did is we revisited our three-phase plan, even though we listened to the community about the three-phase plan and really wanting to address the high school sooner. We looked at the price tag and it gave us some pause. We ultimately did not go ahead and recommend, the committee did not recommend a three-phase plan because they know that our kids, over 600 are going to be here in 5 years and another 800 or so in 6 years. And so we have to be ready, and we really have to do this work now and plan now. And so that's why there's a sense of urgency. If we built a new high school, it would take 4 years. It would take 12 or 24 months to plan and 24 months to build. Another aspect of our consideration was the impact of one high school or having two high schools. And one of the things we deliberated a lot about is what would that mean? And we'll talk about this a little bit later in our presentation. And we also evaluated maybe saving parts of the high school that we could just renovate and could make work with a renovation project and a new build project. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But by far, the input from the community really drove these recommendations more than anything. And so we had community conversations in January and February. These were very engaging. Folks were able to bring their ideas in, cross-pollinate their ideas with other people at their tables. Each table did a presentation on ideas that they had, and it was a T-chart where it was benefits and drawbacks of what they were suggesting. And here is where we really heard a lot about a second high school, and folks came in thinking it was really important to split up the high school and build a second one. And then when they got talking with their neighbors and folks at their tables, they soon discovered that the expense of adding a second high school, $1 million in or more in operational costs every year. But the biggest factor folks engaged and talked about that was concerning was the problem of equity and access. If we built a new high school, we would have one brand new building and one very old building that we would need to renovate. And the cost for that would be sky high. It would be difficult to renovate and still have school. And we really wouldn't be able to address equity and really be able to offer the rich array of courses we can offer. We have an economy of scale high school. We can offer things that smaller high schools can't. And that was also important in these community conversations. And I know, Jessica, you were there, and a number of people on our panel were at these conversations. Did you, Jessica, or anybody else want to say anything about what took place in these conversations?
Absolutely. The conversations with the community were very enlightening, informative, and a great time to just listen to the needs of our community, and the kids that we service every day and the parents that entrust us with their precious jewels. And so a lot of similarities came out of every single group, and the safety being a big one, state-of-the-art education, vocational programming, athletic facilities. And so, everybody has been around to different districts and seen different things. And so some of those ideas were brought to the table, but I really enjoy just listening to the conversations of our community members and hearing what, they see as our future high school and what our students need to be successful now and in the future.
Thank you, Jessica. And I know everybody on the panel went to at least one meeting, and many of you went to more than one. Does anybody else want to say anything about these community conversations? Okay, I'll go to the major themes of these conversations. I think it was very enlightening. And so the themes in these community conversation were the recommendation to build one high school on our current site. It was, kind of a resounding recommendation when we looked at the equity issues of having a second high school and having to renovate, and the costs of operational costs, not just operationally in terms of hiring teachers and administrators for a new building, an additional building, but also the transportation and the electrical and the HVAC and the energy costs long-term. And so the recommendation that we heard from the community was to build a new high school on our current site. Another recommendation was to design a state-of-the-art campus style structure that has classrooms that really foster engagement and that are bright and beautiful and inspiring for teachers and students. Also, we heard lots of people weigh in on the performing arts and athletics, and really wanting state-of-the-art spaces for both, and adding a field house for at the high school as well. And the thinking there would be that it would be used not just by 9 through 12 students, but even Pee Wee basketball and soccer programs, from students from the younger grades in our district. Also, we heard quite a bit about fostering more vocational spaces at the new high school. So these spaces would be much like the 3 satellite programs we have from Eastland Fairfield at Clark Hall, but they would enable students to take them on campus here at Lincoln High School. Eastland Fairfield has wonderful programs, but our kids are reluctant to spend their day there because they want to be on this main campus with their friends and kids that they've grown up with. And so parents thought if we could bring more satellite programs here, we could really help kids develop interests and even get jobs right out of high school. Jessica, I know you were enlightened by these conversations around vocational options. Do you remember anything from those meetings you'd like to highlight?
I was definitely pleasantly surprised at how that was a theme throughout pretty much every single group. And I enjoyed hearing that because I know our students have expressed that as well. And a part of our community conversation was also having a conversation with our kids. We had a conversation with about 50 students on my principal's advisory, and it was a very rich conversation. And they expressed the exact same thing and wanting vocational opportunities and talking about their desire to participate in an Eastland Fairfield program, but just the love they have for Lincoln High School and wanting to be around their friends and have the traditional high school experience. So it really got our brains thinking about how can we marry the two together to bring that to our kids right on our own campus. And we have the great satellite programs, but our kids are looking for expansion. They want to be a part of Lincoln High School and the pride that is their high school, but also be a part of some hands-on experiences through our Career Center programs too.
Yeah, thank you. So the other thing we would want to do with a new high school building is enhance our security systems. I think there's something like 37 doors at the high school, Jessica, and that creates lots of issues. So really building with modern security systems in mind when students come into the building and leave, and just building a state-of-the-art security system. And also, we heard a lot about eliminating the need to cross the street to Clark Hall. And Catherine, I know that was a concern that you heard from many parents. Do you want to say anything about the safety enhancements?
Just that it was, I think I went to 3 or 4 of these community conversations, and it was interesting to me that the conversation about Clark Hall came up in every single meeting that I went to. The message was always consistent that there was a concern about safety. And that's just been an ongoing theme throughout all of these conversations, not just the ones back in January and February, but also the conversations that we've had since. So it's definitely been an ongoing theme.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation from the committee for the high school is to, build it on the current site and build space for an additional 600 students, which would total a total of 2,800 students. And the high school would include, from the committee's recommendations, 400,000 square feet of space in a single building on this site, a state-of-the-art performing arts center, state-of-the-art athletics fields and center with a field house, expanded cafeteria space, additional vocational programming, approximately 130 state-of-the-art classrooms, and this is a big one, ample parking for students and events. A lot of times when we have a performing arts event and maybe a basketball game, we run out of parking really, really quickly. And so this would include up to 1,400 spaces for students. Mainly it's our juniors and seniors who drive, but some of our sophomores in second semester also want to drive to school. And it would be really important that we be able to kind of build this new building on this site. I'm sitting in the Board of Education office right now, and still be able to have school. And so where it would use every bit of space behind the visitor stands on our football field. There's other choices. We could actually move the football field. But one way of thinking about this is to eliminate the Lincoln Elementary, tear it down, and then use the space in that area and behind the visitor stands of our stadium all the way down to the softball field and tennis courts, and where I'm sitting now in our central office building. That's one idea. We're working with architects Moody Nolan just on a book of possibilities, the different ideas that we can explore. But whatever we do, we would make sure we sat down and had community meetings and had tracing paper with blown up maps of the site. And we would want people to draw what they thought would be the most inspiring high school we could build. We did that with Lincoln Elementary. We had 4 meetings at Middle School South, and folks from the neighborhood and throughout the community came in and weighed in on how the building should sit on the site, what amenities it should have, where the detention pond should be, and a whole host of other aspects of the new build. One of the most important thoughts from our committee and the community conversation was our high school. We're a one high school town, and we have been for decades, and it is a source of community pride. Geographically, it's in the middle of our community. It's a place for people to rally. It's the place where it's the flagship of our community. When Grin has an event, or our community arts folks have events, our dance groups throughout the community, they use our high school. And we think it's really important that this facility not just belong to the students from 9 through 12, but it belonged to our whole community. And does anybody on our panel want to say anything about this slide and the aspect of community pride that came up again and again in our community conversations?
I can do it. It, as you said, Steve, our building, the high school, is definitely the flagship of the community. It is open to the community after hours, and there is great pride at Lincoln, all the great programs that then contribute to our overall community and give back to our lower levels at the middle school and high school. But there is a lot of great pride, and graduates constantly come back. And we even have people on our teaching staff who are graduates of Lincoln High School. And so this is home. This is home for everybody who has come through this system. They always come back home. And this building is always welcoming them with open arms. So,
yeah, thank you, Jessica.
And I can add. Oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Tracy.
Well, I was just going to say, I also have heard so much, because there's so much pride in Gahanna, and especially in the high school, because it's a one high school town, that there are a lot of people, because they go to these other high schools that have newer high schools, even in the last 10 years, or even the last 15 or 20 years. The pride in our high school is in the community, but it seemed like through all these meetings, even through the phase 1 community meetings we had, people were ready for a building they could be proud of. They're really proud of our community. They're really proud of the programs. They're really proud of our students. They're really happy to come back, just like Jessica said. But now it seemed like it was the time for them to have a building that they could be proud of. So I just wanted to add that.
And I'll add on to what both Jessica and Tracy said. Being a Gahanna graduate and having grown up in Gahanna, I remember being a little girl and, driving by the high school and just imagining what went on in there. And also having the opportunity to play Pee-wee basketball in the back gym. And so it's definitely a very central part of our community, and something that would be a strong sense of pride for everyone. For sure.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Moody Nolan Architects, they specialize in buildings in tight spaces. They really look at it as a challenge, and we can definitely fit a 400,000 square foot high school on the space that we would have available to us. But they were particularly inspired by the challenge. And so what they did for us at Pro Bono, they've been great partners, is they worked up a book of possibilities, of different ideas that we may be able to explore. So they looked at 9 different possibilities of what we could do with the space available to us. They whittled it down to 3 or so, and we had some great conversations with them. We're going to show you one of the possibilities that they shared with us, but again, it's not etched in stone. We would have community meetings. We would deliberate over what the community saw as inspiring to them. And we're excited to do that work. If we pass this levy, we really want to have a lot of deliberative conversations with folks in the community. But here's just some aspects of what they thought about as they thought about our space. So as you look at this drawing, you can see at the bottom of my screen, the bottom right, this is Hamilton Road, and that would be parking space, as much as 1,400 spaces. And as you come up Havens Corner, you see our football field, and you see where the former Lincoln Elementary was, or soon to be torn down, and the build could start there and go across the practice field right behind the visitors stadium, and the field house would be down here where I'm sitting in central office. So this is just one idea they had. Again, nothing etched in stone. This is how one aspect or one imaginary kind of idea on what it could look like. And this is an aerial view of another way it could look. And so it's been exciting to work with Moody Nolan. This book of possibilities, we have several copies of it, and we could, definitely share it with the community. I think, one worry we have about this is we don't want anyone to feel that this is a fait accompli or we've settled on any design, because we really haven't. There's a lot of work to do before we do that. But these were definitely inspiring drawings for us to kind of talk with them about. So the third question we want to talk about tonight is, what is the cost of this project? And so when we look at the cost of the elementary additions, it would be about $20 million. The cost of the middle school renovations would be $31 million. And the cost of the high school new build would be $198 million, for a total of $250 million. And so what that means is we would need 3 funding vehicles, 2 for the renovations and the new build, the 4.39 or 4.93 bond levy, and a 1.5 PI levy. And we're also going to need operating dollars at this time as well. As we grow, we're going to have to add positions. Our growth is already upon us. As you saw in our enrollment study, the growth is already really here at the elementary and middle school level. And Mike Verlingo, did you want to talk about the 5-year forecast to look at our operating needs?
Yeah, so we are in the midst of developing the November forecast. It'll be finalized in the next week to 10 days. So as many in the community may or may not be aware, we are required to do a 5-year forecast every roughly 6 months and submit that to ODE. That ensures that estimated expenses and revenues are in line and that we are not going to run into significant deficits. By law, we cannot operate in a deficit position. We must maintain a positive cash balance. So therefore, there are many factors that go into the development of the forecast, and they change, every cycle, again, depending upon economic conditions. Certainly with the COVID-19 crisis, it has had a significant impact on the operations of the district, education, as well as finances. State funding was reduced at the end of last year. In the last month of the cycle, we were reduced by a little over $1.6 million. That has carried forward in that reduction in this current fiscal year. It's anticipated that we might start to see some recovery next fiscal year because the state is not as, let's say, the projections or the actuals are doing a little bit better than they had projected. But again, we're not certain we're going to see that funding reestablished next fiscal year. In addition, potential impacts on property tax revenues, which is certainly our largest source of revenues. Interest rates have declined significantly, and that has an impact on the interest earnings we have on invested funds. Again, inflation rates have an impact. So all of these things being considered, also staffing. Steve discussed the enrollment projections, and over the next 4 years, we're looking at 174, 120, 156, 129 additional students. That translates into, at roughly 30 students per classroom, about 19 additional teaching staff. Normally, classrooms are held to about a 25 max, but you can assume that some of those children will be dispersed into other classrooms, not necessarily creating one classroom. And that will occur throughout the district at different education levels. In addition, there would be aides needed on an annual basis, depending upon the developmental needs of the students or any special disabilities. And also bus drivers. It puts a strain on our bus fleet in terms of additional students needing more transportation. We will need to hire additional bus drivers and also purchase additional buses to expand the fleet. So again, there's many things that go into the forecast. This 4.26 mil operating levy would keep the district solvent for the next 4 fiscal years, so that we would maintain our budget to operate within the constraints of the dollars that we would raise.
Thank you, Mike. So the 3 funding mechanisms that we will need in issue 22 would require 10.69 mils or $31 a month on the assessed value of a $100,000 house. And that's $374 a year. We realize that in Gahanna, the median price for a home is just over $200,000. And so, you know, it would be double the $374. But the interesting thing about this millage is properties were just reassessed in Gahanna and throughout Central Ohio. And right now, because this has to go on the November ballot, we have to use the current valuation. But with the reassessed value, the valuation in our community went up between, I think, Mike, right, 16 and 19% or so. So this millage in January will actually adjust down. And Mike, I think you said to like 9.3 mils. Is that right?
It's likely to fall under 9.
It could be under 9. Okay. And so we had to put it on as 10.69, but it's as Mike said, it could fall under 9 mils. We're raising a fixed amount with the bond, and so the millage will adjust to raise that amount with the new valuation of our community. So often this is confusing, and what we want to do is just talk about what this assessed value means. So on $100,000, it's a metric of 0.35 or 35,000 that taxpayers would be assessed on their property value. You divide that by 1,000 and you get 35, and you multiply that by 10.69 and you get $374 per year. And so we realize that this is very expensive. We realize that the timing with the COVID-19 impact on our economy, on unemployment, on our state finances. As Mike said, we were reduced by 1.6 million in fiscal year 20, and Mike has projected additional reductions in the next couple of years. Hopefully the state will recover. Central Ohio is recovered a little more quickly than other parts of our state. So those reductions, even though he's projected those in the forecast, hopefully they won't be as bad as you know, we think, and there'll be an adjustment. But at the end of the day, we really, with our Board of Education and as a committee, deliberated about the timing of this. And we said to ourselves, you know, this is really a difficult time. But when we think of the next 5 years and the number of students that will be here, it is really urgent that we begin this process because our students, we're going to gain a number of students over the next few years, and over 671 in 25-26, and another 800, or not another, inclusive of the 671, 827 in 26-27. So in 26-27, we're going to have over 800 students that aren't here today. And so it's incumbent upon us to go to the community and ask permission to do this project. We know we're very mindful of that. This is a very difficult time. And one of the things we did to try to look at this project is we did try to look at a renovation project where, we said, what part of the high school could we save to save taxpayer money to get to our 400,000 square foot building, keep parts of the building that we love, like our auditorium, which is got wide stage and great sky space. And so was there a way to maybe do a renovation project and build new? And I know Tracy and Catherine, you were a part of these discussions on our committee, and we were trying to save on square footage costs, but what happened when we deliberated about this? I remember distinctly your feelings that night.
This was a hard night. This committee met every Monday night for months and months and months to go through this process. And as we were going through the process, I'll just stop to say I'm married to an accountant. So it's always like, I'm always thinking, oh, that's too much money. Oh, that's too much money. Oh, that's too much money. So as we were, we got real excited about this new high school. Then we started seeing how much it was going to cost. And I started thinking, there's no way. Like, we've got to figure out a way to make this cheaper. We've got to figure out a way that we can cut costs. This was just, I'm not used to construction. We have a couple people on the committee that work in the construction area. So these prices, they figured it would cost this much. So I think everybody humored me because I said, maybe we need to go back to renovations. Maybe we just need to keep the high school we have and renovate. And I think the construction people knew that probably wasn't going to work. But I just felt like, as a community member, I was not doing my due diligence to not push for this. So we spent this one night where you have this document that you're looking at in front of you. And it was painstaking, because really we were thinking, well, if we could just keep, like Steve said, the auditorium or certain things we really loved, and then renovate those, but demolition everything else that was really old, then it would be okay. So we started doing that, and Scott Lofton was in there, and he knew the price per square footage for renovation and for demolition. And when it came down to it, with what we thought was going to look like really nice, it was a lot of money. Like, it was almost as much as building a new high school. So then we're like, okay, we can't do this. We can't demo so much. So the red is demo. We had a lot more red when we started. We were only keeping like the auditorium, the things we loved. Then we had to start changing red to blue to try to save more money. Like, we've got to keep things and just renovate it. We've got to keep things and renovate it. And really, this is what we ended up with, what you're seeing, that 2/3 of that high school was going to stay, and only 1/3 was going to be torn down and rebuilt. And not only was it a sickening feeling, because when we left that meeting, this is what we thought we were going to do. It seemed uninspiring. It was definitely not what the community had asked for. We were keeping problems. I mean, if you think that high school, some parts are over 100 years old. Doors are, like the big stone, when you walk in, those big entryways, like last year, they fell down right before Christmas, before winter break was over. Like, we're keeping those problems, and still it's going to cost a ton of money. So fortunately, even though this meeting was really disheartening, we were able, the people that know how to do this stuff, between that Monday and the next Monday, went back to the drawing board, figured some things out. And that's why we're bringing you the big ask that we're bringing you right now with the new high school, is because we felt like this wasn't going to do it. What you're looking at in red and blue was not what you were asking for as a community. And so we had to put a big price tag on it to get the high school that we thought the community was asking for. So that's what this levy is to have permission to do that high school and not do what's sitting in front of you on the screen.
Thank you, Tracy. So what I'd like to do is just kind of take a look. We're often asked, where are we in terms of our rank with funding for effective millage when you look at other districts that we compete against in athletics and that surround us. And we're currently in this list 15th. Our effective millage is 44.10. And this is something I think that's often enlightening to folks. And I know, Catherine, you're a realtor, and so you talk about when you sell property, you talk about schools all the time. Did you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I think that of all of the slides, this is one of the most enlightening to look at and compare our peer institutions to us. If you take a look at the districts that we're surrounded by, we are 15th. And then you see our peer institutions, our neighbor institutions, Reynoldsburg and Columbus and Whitehall being 14th, 13th, and 12th. Licking Heights, who just opened a brand new high school, being 10th, Bexley being 8th, New Albany being 6th, and Westerville being 5th. I know that clients, when they are looking for places to live, they have choices, and they're looking for a community that has pride in their schools, that has obviously strong academics, but also strong facilities as well. And they do have choices. All of the places that we are surrounded by have newer facilities than we do. So this becomes especially important the older your kids get, because when your kids get into sports, one of the things that you are doing is you're taking your child to other districts and you're seeing those facilities in person, and it becomes very evident very quickly which school districts are taking care of their facilities and which are not. So I think this is a very enlightening slide.
Thank you, Catherine. So before we get into questions, I just wanted to ask anyone from the committee to just sort of summarize the ask of our community here. Like I said earlier on, we're asking permission to do this work. We know in 26, 27, there'll be another 800 plus students here. In the next 5 years, there'll be over 670 students here. And so I think it's really important to recognize that given all the constraints and challenges of COVID-19, that kids are going to come to our district, whether we have the space or not. And so I think that's a big part of the reason we put this on the ballot at this awkward and really challenging time for all families, for all communities. And so having said that, does anybody on the panel want to say anything about, just sort of summarize what this ask is about?
I just want to say, just to reiterate what Steve just said, we don't just glibly come to you tonight or in any of these community meetings and throwing this out there like, yeah, let's vote for a levy and let's get a new high school, and not recognize the sacrifice we're asking of families in the community, of the elderly in the community who maybe had grandkids or children, or they themselves went through this high school and are limited budgets, the families that have multiple children and COVID has hit them and they've lost their jobs. Like we don't want you to think that this is we're just bringing it to you thinking this is a really easy thing for families in Gahanna to do. But we just really felt like this was the time. As strange as that sounds with COVID, we just kept hearing from the community that you were ready. And I guess this levy will tell us if you are. I mean, maybe COVID changed that for you. Maybe things that have happened recently have changed that for you. But it just seems like when I'm out in the community and talking to people, this is really what we're wanting as a community. And so that's why we're bringing it, even in such a difficult time. We just really feel like this is the time. It just, like Steve was saying earlier this evening before the meeting started, that this is going to be a great story to tell. Like Gahanna always has great stories, and to vote for a new high school in the middle of a pandemic, it just says you're committed. Like this is your community and you're committed to make the sacrifice to make this happen. So.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy. So Jill Elliott is monitoring our questions on YouTube. Jill, do we have any questions we could try to answer?
Before you go to YouTube, before you go to questions, Catherine and I had talked, and I just felt like if she's willing, she had just talked really about things that had gone wrong in the high school and things she had heard, and how the safety issue isn't just like crossing the street or things like that, but just the urgency of doing this levy now. I felt like she really spoke to that, to my heart. So I don't know if she's willing to speak to that now, but that just really said a lot to me.
I'd be happy to speak to that. So two things about, doing this at an awkward time. First of all, Steve mentioned, I'll come back to safety in just a minute, Tracy, but one of the things that Steve mentioned earlier that I think is very important to understand is with the escalation in construction costs being 3% per quarter, that translates to 12% per year. And when you're doing such huge projects that cost many millions of dollars, that 12% adjustment really is painful. So I know that there are a lot of people out there who are very cost conscious and want to keep their taxes low. And actually that's part of what we're trying to do by doing it now, to try to shelter ourselves from that 12% escalation that happens every year, which then translates to many millions of dollars. The other thing that, Tracy and I were talking about earlier, this was very much highlighted a couple of days ago when a parent of a high school student took some pictures of a recent flood. Just happened, I think, a couple of days ago when one of the air conditioners broke at the high school and flooded, I think, 3 different classrooms and some hallways. And so the safety issues are not just about stairwells and hallways. The safety issues extend to potential mold and, fire escape in case of fire and or other emergencies. So what is, I think, most important to me and to a lot of people is to address these safety issues sooner rather than later before something happens. And that's very important to me because I have a 7th grader. So hopefully, Tracy, did I cover what you wanted me to? Did I say what you wanted me to say?
Yeah. It just seemed like it just was another factor in that now is the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's never too early to solve safety issues, I think.
Right. Okay, thanks. We can entertain questions at this time, and I think we have a couple. Jill, did you want to let us read the first question for us?
Sure. So the first question says, if classes will no longer be held at Clark Hall, what will that space be used for? It seems wasteful to no longer use such a new building when taxpayers have paid for it over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And so there's a couple possibilities that Clark Hall could be used for. We're actually in the midst of having it appraised. Clark Hall is a very innovative project. The district owns and leased the property to the developer that runs, Chipotle and Menchie's and all the restaurants on that site. We get about $130,000 a year from the developer, and it was a lease for 88 years. And so that is one of the most innovative things a school district that I know about has done in terms of a private-public partnership. Yet I think the appraisal is really important to look at what Clark Hall is worth on the open market. Is it Class A office space? There's a number of different uses. But at the end of the day, the space I'm sitting in, Jill is sitting in right now in central office, we're going to need this space for a new high school. And so one aspect of what could happen with Clark Hall is central office could go there, other types of programming could go there. It is a building that is beautiful, one of the most inspiring educational spaces at the K-12 level that I have seen. And so it would definitely be used by the district. The appraisal will give us some interesting information. So that investment that the community made will not be wasted.
Steve, I would also add that, our preschool's currently housed there and continues to grow as well. And so we need to be considering space for that as well.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, the next question. What is the cost of keeping part of the high school and adding new as compared to a totally new high school?
So I remember in our discussion, we had Cornica Kosing and our architects present for these discussions, and the cost to renovate was about 2/3 the cost to build new. And so, Jill, I think you have a spreadsheet. Since I'm sharing my screen, if I remember correctly, it was the renovation aspect was around $200 a square foot, maybe just over that, and the build new was 3 something. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looks about $350 per square foot.
So the renovation per square foot would be $200, and the build new would be around $350. When we did that exercise, when Tracy talked about that meeting where you saw the red and the blue, it was keeping about 2/3. So the renovation for 2/3 of the 400,000 square feet would be $200, and then the build new part would be around $350, give or take. So it would have been cheaper. 2/3 of 198 million is about 130 million. But we don't think we would correct a lot of the issues that we have currently with our crowded hallways and our dated HVAC electrical systems. One of the things that you may have seen if you've been on Facebook is a couple of videos that show what our boiler room looks like. It's a very dated structure. So those aspects would be very expensive to renovate. Scott Lofton, did you want to say anything about the renovation versus build new?
Yeah, the really big problem is renovating is when do we have time to do it? Because we only have 8 weeks in the summer, renovation would take a very long time because we'd have to do work in one section, get it ready for school that summer, for that fall, and then work on it next summer. So it could take, potentially 4 or 5, maybe even into 6 years that the renovation would take. It would be a long time and very slow.
Yeah, and it would be hard to have school while we're renovating. One of the things Moody Nolan Architects told us is that we could, over a 4-year period, build a new high school with minimal disruption to the school day over the 4-year period it would take to build the high school. So that was a good thing to hear because construction can often be messy. I think in the 80s, there was a major construction project, I think in 1987 at Lincoln High School. And we've lived through many renovations and many additions. And we're just getting to the point that we've run out of space to do that work. And there'll be a lot of tearing down in any kind of a renovation project, which involves lots of safety precautions that we would have to do. Asbestos, precautionary measures and other things. Are there any other questions, Joe?
There are a few more. The next question is, what will be included in the Performing Arts Center and the Field House?
So one of the things we want to do is we didn't want to come to you with predisposed ideas. We talked a little bit about the number of basketball courts that might be at the field house, but we really want the community to sit down and deliberate with us on different aspects of our athletic facility and performing arts. Right now, I think we can hold Jessica and Scott, I think 700 or 800 students in our auditorium. And I know Jessica has expressed the need to have a bigger auditorium so that, you know, right now when our band has a concert or a choir has a concert, they often have to do a split schedule. So they have one group come in at 3 p.m. on a Sunday and another group come in at 6 or 7 to hear the same concert. If we had a 1,400 seat auditorium, we would eliminate the need to do those two performances. Jessica, did you want to say anything about just the preliminary ideas we had for performing arts?
Yeah, you know, as you mentioned, increasing the seat capacity within the auditorium definitely is something that benefits our performing arts programs and the productions that they put on, but also supports us during the school day as well. And also serves as a great community space for after hours types of activities that go on. And, you know, just preliminary conversations about creating a space that allows for us to still provide our athletic programs and our performing arts programs at the same time, with enough parking and enough space for people to attend and watch their loved ones perform at the sport or the activity that they love so much. And so those are just some of the preliminary ideas: increasing the seating capacity, making sure that it's still a state-of-the-art type of facility in our performing arts area, but also being able to accommodate athletics on top of that, to allow for, which we see often in our busy schedule at the high school, there are things that happen at the same time on specific nights.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica. Any other questions, Jill?
Next question. I saw the what if we do not do phase 2 capacity numbers. Can we see the capacity numbers, if the percentage numbers, if the plan goes through as expected?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So if, could you repeat it?
Yes, I think what is being said is, you know, we showed the chart of our capacity concerns if we did not do the project. What would the capacity look like if we did do the project? That's what.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in our, and it's on our website, I believe, our study shows that if we complete the project, that our capacity issues will serve our needs for the next 30 or so years and beyond. And so as we work with cooperative strategies about our phase 2 plan, you know, that's factored in. So we'll be able to definitely build a high school. I mean, I said in 2038, 39, I believe, we top out at about 2,800 students. And then our growth begins to decline a little bit. And so we definitely will be able to sustain the growth that we're going to experience with all the building that's happening in Jefferson Township if phase 2 goes through. But there is, I believe there's a slide on the enrollment study that shows that.
Okay, next question. Other than the stadium, where are the rest of the fields? Are they going to be the land behind Blacklick Elementary?
Yeah, so we have talked a lot, and we would like to deliberate with the community around that. The where to put, for instance, the tennis courts would probably be needed for the building, and so where would we relocate our tennis courts? Definitely, we have acreage out at Blacklick, and we have plenty of land there to put in a nice athletic field space with several fields. Scott, I think I know the number of acres, something like 30 acres there.
Yes, yeah, we are.
Yeah, so there's plenty of room at Blacklick. I think what we would need to do is build in drainage so the fields drain, maybe put in some turf so that weather isn't an issue. But we could build a really nice athletic park there. We have enough space to do that. But the football field, or not the football field, the stadium where we play, you know, lacrosse and soccer and football, that would stay on this campus.
Okay, the next question. Can you share the costs and ages of the current Lincoln High School buildings? And I will say that Mr. Dangle was able to jump in and put in the chat that Lincoln Hall, the former B building on the corner, was constructed in 1927. Hamilton Hall was constructed in 1963, and additions were completed in 68, 81, 95, and 2000. So if there's any more to add to the ages piece, but then there's also a question about the cost of the buildings.
The cost back then? Is that right?
It didn't specify, just can you share the costs and ages? So potentially.
Yeah, I don't have that information. We might be able to find that information, Scott. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. I don't have those costs.
Mhm.
Okay, the next question. Will the high school be under one roof or will there be separate buildings?
So when we talked about in the presentation about a campus style structure, it could be several buildings that feel separate but are connected by hallways, and so that's the style that many larger high schools are going to. But we would want to sit down with the community, have several meetings where we bring out the charrette paper, have the architects talk through the site, give a short presentation on things like, detention ponds and the space they would need for that. But we did this for the new Lincoln Elementary, and folks were able to draw where they thought the building should be situated on the property. And we took a lot of their input. We weren't able to take all of it, but it was a very good discussion. And so we very much want to have a hands-on community deliberative dialogue approach to this.
Okay, so there was a question about whether the link to this presentation will be sent out to watch later.
Yes, this will be available on our website.
Okay. A comment about being pleased to hear that the goal and intent is still to utilize Clark Hall, I think, in the district, even if classes won't be there. And then the next question, 400,000 square feet is the potential size of Lincoln High School, 130 classrooms. What is the current size?
The square footage size, Scott, do you know what the square footage of Lincoln is now?
We're just around 350,000 square feet.
Okay. And that includes Clark Hall though as well, right?
No, that doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It does include Clark Hall.
Yeah.
And we're about 110, 105, 110 classrooms.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, the next one is some clarification related to the cost and ages question. It says mostly if there are any we're still paying for in a long-term levy, like the 2000 renovations.
Oh, so is there any bond issues that we have debt service on? Is that the?
Yes, Steve, I can address that.
Yeah.
The total millage dating back to 1987 that is on the duplicate. The voted mills were 7.96 over the last 33 years. The current effective millage is 2.15, and 0.65 of that relates to a 1998 issue that will drop off the duplicate next year. So the only outstanding debt the district would have for bond issues is the 2018 issue. And the total actually raised prior to the 2018 issue for 32 million, going back to 1987, that 31-year period was a total of $52 million over a 30.
Mhm.
And Mike, just to clarify, that's district-wide, not just for high school buildings.
That's district-wide.
Okay.
Yes, because that also included 1992 constructing Northwest Elementary School. Others just said building improvements. 1994, there was $8 million for renovations and expanding the high school. So for various issues, but again, over that 30-year period, very minimal amount of dollars if you consider the size of the district, the number of facilities we have.
Hey, Mike, I'm not sure I explained the millage drop given the assessed value well. Do you want to take a shot at explaining that? Because you said it could be under 9 mills total for this project.
Yes, so House Bill 920 back in 1975, 76, I'm not sure exactly when it was passed, but it basically prohibits or restricts us from receiving any additional dollars due to inflationary increases on home values. So as values increase, the millage associated with current levies will decrease. Therefore, if you look at our total operating millage, which is voted at 69.98, going back to 1968, we're collecting 35.64 mills, which is a reduction of 49%. If you look at the bonds, 7.96, 2.15, it's down 73%. So every year as valuations increase, there will be an offsetting decrease in the millage assessed, and therefore, in theory, you would pay the same tax.
Mm-hmm.
Could vary slightly depending upon the assessed increase in your particular neighborhood or for your particular home. If your home is assessed at a rate higher than the average, you would see a slight increase in tax. If your assessment is less than the average, you would see an actual decrease in your tax.
Thank you, Mike.
There are no further questions at this time.
Well, we want to thank people who joined us tonight, members of our community. Really appreciate you taking the time to ask the questions you asked. Very good questions tonight. I want to thank our panel for being here. Again, we're just trying to ask permission to do this work as we grow. We know we've been through a lot as a district lately, and I just want you to know that we're coming together, and we had our first couple of days of hybrid learning. It was really cathartic to see kids in the classroom, and teachers were shedding tears just at the notion that kids were in front of them and they were actually able to teach. And it was very moving to tour the schools yesterday and to see that. And our teachers are very much behind this levy. They've been helping us, do literature drops and things like that. So we're excited to move forward, and we want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We know your time is valuable, and so thanks very much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.